Everybody. So this is a video response to Madscirat. He made a video about talking about who are the real witches, and his philosophy of who the real witches are basically those witches that don't employ this idea of turn the other cheek, Christian philosophy, as he put it, and instead are more willing to use their energy to curse people who have done them wrong. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy, and I'll tell you why. I think that when you learn how to use your own personal power, that comes with a level of responsibility, and that when you decide that you are, judge, jury, and executioner for somebody that you feel has done you wrong, that, retaliation only escalates. That you retaliate, they retaliate, so forth and so on. And when it comes to magical retaliation, it can get out of control quite quickly. I think that it can be a dirty business. I think that it's not necessarily the most wise way to go about things. I'm not saying that cursing is never necessary, but I'm saying that it should be well thought out and not used as a first resort, but as a last resort. To suggest that people aren't real witches because they don't want to use their energy to do harm to others is very offensive. It's basically saying that your philosophy of who is a witch is the only right one by saying these are the real witches. I really, in my time here on YouTube, I gotta say that, I've been lucky enough to kind of educated myself on how to, go about saying things. And I think that when one tries to redefine a term for themselves and say this is the real whatever, it's really touchy ground. We get into the whole no true Scotsman fallacy idea and other nasty terms, and it turns out to be very offensive and very divisive. So I don't want to sound like I'm scolding you or anything like that. That's not what I'm just trying to get my point across on how I feel about basically suggesting that because somebody employs a certain philosophy of not wanting to harm someone, they're not a witch. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think that me personally, I'm not going to say that I have never done a curse on somebody, but I think that return the negativity spells work much better. And I think that that's not using your own personal energy to harm somebody. That's using their own energy against them. And it's a much more effective way because it's basically justice in the making. And when you think about this whole idea, you said I thought it was kind of funny because you compared two Christian philosophies against each other and sided with one Christian philosophy over another. I'll explain. You said that the only real witch that you met followed the idea of you reap what you sow, which is, by the way, a biblical term. But you do reap what you sow. And when you reap negative energy, you sow negative. I mean, when you sow negative energy, you reap negative energy. It's very true. And so you need to really think about it before you decide to curse somebody, because I personally think when you curse somebody, you bind yourself to that person in a certain way because you're sending your energy out to them in such a powerful negative force. Just like when you heal somebody or use your energy for good, you are also binding yourself to that person. So you really need to think about what you're doing with your own spiritual energy before you go off and flippantly curse people. Yes, you may be angry at the time, and that's not the time to do magic. Yes, you may feel like you've been wronged and you want justice, but there are other better ways to get justice within the system instead of creating your own system of justice. And I think that if everybody created their own system of justice and everybody came in with the idea that they're the new sheriff in town, that we would have quite a gunfight, so to speak. It would be mass chaos. There's been stories of towns in different countries where they had this idea of retaliation and in time, from, one person was hurt by one person, so they go back over and kill another person from that family, and then somebody from that family will come back over and kill somebody else. Before you know it, both families are dead. Nobody's really gained anything positive from it. Well, the best revenge, I think, is living well. And so the best thing to do, I don't think the best thing to do when somebody hurts you is to spend all your energy trying to hurt them back. The best thing to do is to go on with your life and make it better, because if you can show that that person has no power over you, then they can't hurt you in the first place. So I think there's better ways to deal with it, quite honestly. I don't think that doesn't mean I'm a real witch. That's definite. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there are Christian witches. You might not have met any, but there are quite a few different traditions out there that employ Christian philosophies. Therefore, the idea that one who employs Christian philosophies is not a real witch, well, those family traditional traditions that you talk about that are handed down from generation to generation, many of those that reside within the United States have employed Christian philosophies. Here in North Carolina, there are the Appalachian Granny Magic, which is kind of a homebrew type of magic, which combines Christian philosophy as well as Native American and Celtic philosophy all in one. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know that. And so they have that influence to them, and to suggest that somehow they're not really practicing magic or really witches because they don't employ your philosophy, I don't agree with that. There are philosophies of justice that go back to pagan times, which discuss specifically why it is that people don't retaliate and people don't go out and create their own brand of justice. If you read Plato's philosophy of justice and ethics, and I can't remember it. Aristotle had one too, and I can't remember what it was called. It started with an N. It's been too long. And I think it's Nicomachean, something like that. Anyway, the point is, just because somebody employs a philosophy of not harming people does not mean they're being Christian. The Christians did not come up with that philosophy. It existed before them. Also, just because somebody decides that there are better ways to handle things besides cursing someone does not mean they're not a real witch or they don't know how to use their own energy. It simply means they're very careful about the energy they send out, as well they should be. Just because you have a gun doesn't mean you need to use it. There's better ways to handle things. Anyway, that's my video. I hope you like it. Blessed be.